Paranormal believers of Reddit, what made you believe? Serious. When I was younger, my mom used to invite random neighborhood children over for dinner and parties so they could eat. At my sister's birthday party, everyone was outside getting ready to hit the pinata. My father noticed a girl sitting inside staring out the window at us. We have a large window beside front door. He told me to go inside and ask her to come out and join the party. I ran up the walkway, looking at her through the window as I went towards the door, and then as soon as I paced through the doorway, losing sight of her for a few seconds, she was gone. My dad thought she had fallen. There's a couch in front of the window, so he thought she fell on the couch. I looked around for her, but couldn't find her, so I told my dad. He helped me look for her, but still nothing. No one else saw her, except me and my dad. My mom said she didn't recall inviting any girls with our description of her. We forgot about it until some years later, though I don't really know exactly how many. My dad and I were sitting in the living room watching TV. From my dad's armchair you can see into the kitchen a little bit. Me and my dad were talking about the show we were watching when he suddenly got quiet. He said my name and motioned for me to come over to him. He told me to look at the microwave. I saw that girl's reflection in the microwave, exactly the same as before. I ran into the kitchen and my dad followed, but again no one was there. We were both pretty spooked, so we went out for ice cream until my mom came home. I thought it was a neighborhood kid playing a prank on us the first time, but seeing her the second time unchanged in our kitchen many years later made me start believing in ghosts. Edit. Thank you so much for my first Reddit award. I wasn't expecting this random event to be of much interest to anyone. I appreciate all the comments and stories everyone is sharing. I like the solution. Well, the house is haunted. Let's grab a pint of ice cream, and maybe it'll be gone when we get back. Apostrophe. A few years ago, my great-grandmother was in her last few days. My family lives a couple of hours away, and I wasn't really able to get there. I had just seen her a couple of weeks before that, and had personally made peace with the inevitable. One night I had a dream where my great-grandmother and I had a nice, long conversation in the house that she had lived in when I was a young kid. We talked about her life and experiences, my life, and my future. It was the most vivid and lucid dream I've ever had. The next morning, my mother called with the bad news that my great-grandmother had passed during the night, probably about 11 p.m. I don't know at what time I had that dream, but I definitely didn't go to bed before 11. I have had vivid, lucid dreams like you describe. About my grandfather, he passed away about 25 years ago. The first one was shortly after he died, and he was running in the dream. He had double knee replacements, so he couldn't run. But I can still remember that dream, like I had it last night. There was another one more recent, and he was talking to me about my grandmother. No one else in my family has had them. Shortly after my mother died, I heard her call my name, and I turned around, and she was standing before me, smiling. Then she simply vanished. I've never hallucinated before or since. I have no mental problems, etc. So I feel like I have to at least entertain the possibility it was for real. Personally never experienced anything, but I've heard some pretty strange stories that really can't be explained any other way. For instance, my dad's aunt is the crazy one because she has psychic abilities. For lack of a better word, my dad took my mom to meet her, and she asked my mom, "Who's that standing behind you?" And of course my mom thought it was my dad just sorta messing around. But she went on to say, "No, it's a woman in a tracksuit," and my mom flipped. When she was a kid, she had a super strong relationship with her grandmother, who died of a heart attack, and my mom always talked about her visiting her in her dreams. But when they buried my mom's grandmother, they buried her in a tracksuit, and my mom swears that she's never told anyone else what they buried her in. So there'd be no way for my dad's aunt to know. It's just things like that that can't really be explained, and other weird things that happen. When I moved in with my boyfriend, he told me there was a ghost man that had always followed him wherever he lived. I'm a firm believer in the paranormal anyway, but it really didn't bother me after some reassurances that he was benevolent. Not long after moving in, our roommate's girlfriend started staying over more often, and this ghost hated her. If she'd use our bathroom, the faucets would both turn on full blast. This would always cause her to run out of the bathroom with her pants around her ankles. The ceiling fans would turn on by themselves. The TV would increase volume on its own. You had to unplug it to get it to stop. We replaced the TV. That one did the same thing. After a few months of weird shit happening, I awoke to the feeling of someone sitting at the foot of the bed. I felt the bed compress, as though a real person had sat down. I jerked up and looked around and saw nothing, but there was an imprint in our comforter where someone had sat. Several more weeks go by and finally the same thing happened again. Only this time there was a man there. Big hat. Trench coat. Looked like he was straight out of a western. After a few seconds he disappeared. I told my boyfriend about him, and his response was, "Oh good. He finally let you see him." After that it just became normal. He sat at the end of the bed most nights while I was pregnant, and then after the baby was born he must have went in and sat with her. We would still catch glimpses of him here or there, and you'd hear footsteps when home alone. We eventually broke up, and I got to say I miss the ghost way more than the boyfriend. You miss the what? My husband and I live in a 100-year-old house. It's always been a little creepy, like hearing people talking in another room and going in, and there's no one there. But a couple of years ago we had two really good hauntings that totally convinced me the paranormal is real. The first thing that happened was when I was sleeping on the living room floor in front of the TV because I hurt my back and was trying to get it to unkink. I woke up at 4 AM and I heard the mantle clock chime 4. I'm sure I was awake because I watched TV for a few minutes. I heard my husband walk into the room behind me, pick up the comforter and spoon behind me with his arm thrown over my waist. After a couple of minutes it was like his arm weighed a ton, and he was throwing a lot of heat. Just about then I heard my husband start snoring in the bedroom. I was like Ashti, freaking terrified. So I counted to 3 and threw the cover off and ran. Woke him up, and we looked, there was no one else in the house. I know there was something there though. The second time we were both asleep in the bedroom at about 4 AM again. My husband says he woke up to hear two little girls talking. He could hear that they were playing jacks. He could hear the ball bouncing and the metal sound of the jacks on the wood floors. One of the little girls says to the other one, "Watch this," and she goes, "Mama, Mama," and I sat straight up still asleep and said, "What baby?" Once a mom, always a mom, right? The little girls laughed because it worked. So he kind of shook me awake, and I looked at him, then at the doorway where the little girls were. They looked real, except their outlines were wavering, and they were almost black and white in coloring. They saw us both looking and laughed. Then the older girl grabbed the littler one's hand and they walked right through the bedroom wall and disappeared. I used to work at a daycare, and there was a one class room that always housed the 2-year-olds. Year after year, the kids would whisper in a corner. When asked who they were talking to, they would, without fail, say Jane. 3 things for me. 2 were slasher sightings and 1 was an experience that saved my life. Firstly was in my first house. I was alone in the house with the bathroom door locked as I was taking a shower. I turned to get the soap and there was someone standing right outside the shower door. I thought my roommate came home and was messing with me, so I told him to get lost. Only after finishing my shower I find that the door was indeed locked. Second was that in my current house we often have nuns walking across the corridor from the spare room to our bedroom. Still happens on occasion today. Lastly, it was about 5 years ago when something pulled me back from a pedestrian crossing, just as a lorry went barreling through the red light whilst the driver was looking to his left. I surely would have been severely injured if not killed. There was absolutely no one near me to have been able to pull me backwards. I can't say it really fully pushed me over the edge, but it made me, to use a double negative, not believe. I guess I'm agnostic on it. I grew up with a Burmese mountain dog. Anybody that knows them knows they are already calm, gentle giants. Mine never once in his entire life barked or growled at anything. He was calm and stoic until one night he wasn't. I was about 15. home alone with the dog, and he just lost his shit. He looked around the room, let loose a growl that absolutely thundered in his chest, and started barking like mad. He had stood up and was in a threatening pose, his hair all straightened out and laid flat. He was ready to go. It was pure pants-eating terror for what felt like 1,000 or so years. Then he just stopped. His hair mussed back up, and he padded over, dropped his mouth in the big doggy grin, and licked my face. If it was a demon or something, it didn't want to duck with my dog again. Oh god. Okay, so I tell this story every time ghost stuff is brought up. I used to live in NC, in a small town no one's ever heard of. I used to think about ghosts all the time, but only for fun. I never considered it any different from Santa or fairies. One night, my mom told me she was sending me to Bible summer camp and my experiences there were isolating and negative, so I had a breakdown because I really didn't want to go. I didn't know shit of what spirits could or couldn't do, especially back then. And I wasn't one to pray at that age. So I decided to ask any spirit in my house for help. Once my parents had left, I called out, "Is anyone here? Can you please help me?" a few times. Before I continue, I need to stress, I have lived in that house for about 10 years by that point. I was an abused kid too. So I taught myself to be very keen to every noise the house makes, naturally or by the people living in it. I knew every creak by heart at that point. If someone was in the house, I would know, and I would know who it was based on their walk. And I knew for sure the difference between normal croaks to walking sounds, the difference between the levels, which door is being opened and closed, etc. So, after a while of calling out for help, I hear something, my parents' door unlocking from upstairs, opening, and swinging shut. A pause. I called out again, thinking my parents might still be home and maybe I made a mistake, which I distinctly remember, because if they heard me crying I would have gotten yelled at. "Hello, is anyone home?" Another pause. Then, I heard footsteps walk along a hall above me tentatively. They were light, like someone who weighed so little, and was walking barefoot. Almost the same sound as a cat. My cat was outside, though, and these were distinctly human steps. No one was home. I called out one more time. "Hello." The walking slowly made its way to the top of the stairs and paused, as if peering down from the top step. Something I would often do if there were a stranger in the house, or if I was listening in on people downstairs. Then, very slowly, I heard this entity walk all the way down the steps and leisurely walk towards me down the hall. I saw a glimmer of light like a sunbeam catching the edge of a dress beneath the trees, and the footsteps stopped about a yard out in front of me. I nervously tried to explain myself, but I felt a confusion and irritation from this thing. I didn't hear words or see much of anything, so I didn't know how to close a conversation. I just awkwardly walked away to watch TV, but I felt eyes on me that whole night. I think I just woke them up, and they were annoyed. Ever since then, I've been a believer, and I've had more unexplainable events happen there too. But, not much after, since I've moved out. It was the night after my dad unexpectedly died a few years ago. He always used to make fun of me for watching paranormal shows. I would jokingly tell him that, if I ever died, to watch for weird shit to happen, because I was going to give him a sign that it's real. I was laying in bed sobbing and trying to process that I had just lost him. I was trying to be quiet, because I was laying next to my boyfriend at the time who was sleeping. It was the absolute most painful feeling I've ever felt to this day. All of a sudden, my phone that was on the nightstand started lighting up and beeping. No notifications. Just flashing on and off while making noises. It wasn't plugged in. Just sitting there. After about 2 minutes of it, I was almost in a panic. I'm still not sure why, but it scared me. I said out loud, "Dad, if that's you, please stop because I'm freaking out." Then it stopped. Just as quickly as it had started. I know it was him. I've regretted telling him to stop, since the second it came out of my mouth. I've never really felt him since. Maybe it was him just letting me know he was there, and that all the shit he gave me for believing was worth it. Maybe I was just at a mental breaking point. Who knows? But, I'm glad it happened, and I got to experience it. My cat visiting me after his death. Okay, so this is kinda long and sad but also happy. As we all know, little kids can see things that others can't. When I was about 5 I was living in this yellow house. The color is important later. We lived in the upstairs section and my grandmother and great grandmother lived in the bottom section. One night when I was about to head to bed all sleepy, I saw this little girl in a red dress with a black ribbon in her hair. She was just smiling and waved and walked out. At the time I knew about ghosts and stuff cause I would watch those fake shows with my dad. Every night for 2 weeks she would come and stand at the foot of my bed, smile, wave and leave. Well, one night she stayed and I talked to her. I asked her who she was and all that stuff one would ask during those shows. Her name was Helena and she was 6. I don't think I told anyone for a while, or if I did they thought I was just playing make believe or something. Well, one night Helena said something to me and it was really strange. Tell Ellie I'm as red as a rose and as happy as yellow. That was the last night I saw her for over 2 years. A week or so after she left I was downstairs with my great grandma coloring and drawing. I don't know what possessed me to do it, but I drew Helena. Well, my great grandma is too long to type lol, gasped and asked me who I was drawing. So I told her I'm drawing the little girl I see. I told her that we were friends. But I think she went home cause she hasn't been back and I have to tell someone something important. She asked me who and what I had to say. So I told her I had to yell Ellie, that she was as red as a rose and as happy as yellow. But that both Ellies in my class didn't know what I was talking about. After I said that, my grandma started crying and me being worried I asked her what was wrong. I found out that her name was Elenia and that she has a twin sister named Helena. And their mother would always tell them to be as red as a rose and as happy as yellow. She ended up showing me a picture of them both with their mom and they were both wearing the same red dress with a black ribbon in their hair. It was in black and white though. After that she went to a chest that was at the foot of her bed that I always like because it had carvings of flowers and birds, but was never allowed to touch it. When she opened it there was her red dress. She told me that when I'm older that I could have the chest and the dress as it seems that Helena wanted that. Well, 2 years later my grandma passed away and put in the will the chest and all the contents. By then I was big enough to fit the dress, so I put it on. And when I looked in the mirror I saw Helena standing there smiling, and she told me to be as red as a rose and as happy as yellow. It's been several years now, I still have the chest, which I found out was Helena's, and the dress and everything in it. Every now and then I see her just standing there smiling. I only found out a few years ago that Helena was killed by her father when they were both 8. Even to this day we all say that she stuck by her sister's side till the end. Now no one can tell me that ghosts don't exist and little kids can't see them. My dad was terminally ill when I was a teen. One night before bed, I went to say goodnight. As I stood in the hallway I thought I saw someone standing by his bed. It was late, and it was just out of the corner of my eye. I assumed it was my mom. Out of nowhere my mom come up behind me, made a soft gasping sound, and pushed me into the bathroom and shut the door. I was confused and stayed in there for maybe a minute. When I opened the door, she was standing there in shock. I asked her, "You know, what was that for?" She said, "That was grandfather's nickname, standing over dad." My grandfather had passed about 2 years before. My dad passed away not too long after. My mom is sure that her dad was there to keep an eye on us at the end of my dad's life. Additionally, not long after my dad died, me and my mom woke to aggressive banging on the sliding glass door on the first floor of our house. We found my little sister screaming and crying, "Let him back in. He wants back in. Please, someone." Stuff like that. She didn't remember it in the morning and doesn't remember it to this day. Second part is less paranormal and just generally creepy, but my mom has kind of always considered the women in our family sensitive to things. Like this video and this good boy will be your mailman forever. We are Redditation, and we redditate every day. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a wonderful day you magnificent people.